Hey guys, my name is Nina Means. I'm the director for Austin Community College Fashion Incubator, and we are here for Workshop Wednesdays. We are so excited to kind of continue what we started with this series. We did several weeks on technical design to explain to you what that role in our industry is all about, as well as ways for you to work digitally and what that means to create a tech pack and all the different components that go into that. And so we walked you through an overview of what the design process looks like. But as we've reached out to you all and asked you, what are some of the other areas that you're interested in? Product development kept coming up again and again. And so what we wanted to do is to take the time to address those needs here today. So this is going to begin another series of another great opportunity to bring some amazing content to the forefront. So, I started working in fashion probably a little over 10 years ago. But, actually changed my career almost 10 years ago. I went back to design school after a completely different career move and had a really great experience designing and working for large corporate brands across the globe. And well, with distribution across the globe, let's be clear. So American labels that sell to various regions around the world, and so got a lot of experience learning about the product development process, whether you're working domestically or if you're working in overseas. These are all things that you'll have to do in order to bring your product to market. So what we're going to do is really just focus on product development today. This is a huge topic, and what I'm going to do is to give you an overview of what that process looks like. Some people will kind of categorize this really around the sampling that's taking place during this time, but what we're really seeing is that it's really so much more than that. It's there's so many different components that go into product development, and when a designer goes to sit down and create a collection for another brand, there's a lot of details that come into play, more than just whether or not the design looks great. And so what we want to do is to kind of go through some of those stages here with you today, just as a highlight, just as an overview. We only have 30 minutes, so it won't be comprehensive as a, as now go out and, do your own product development. However, it will give you I would say the scaffold, or, the framework to work with in order to bring, some idea around what's going to be needed in order to complete a successful product development. This framework is one that I've actually used many times teaching product development at an intro and advanced level for college students. And so I've actually taught this for a number of semesters previously. And it takes some time to go through, and we still don't cover everything that we'd love to do with them. However, I am going to give you kind of a snapshot into this. So for the next few weeks, we'll be in this space of product development and getting a chance to talk about what these things really mean. So I'm going to start with you here with a framework that was something that we did all the time, whether I was designing at American Eagle Outfitters or if I was at Rebecca Taylor as an intern when I first started. We had some really great experiences there. But then also working for Halston and QVC. These processes, have transcended all sizes of businesses. And so I'm going to share with you today what that looked like. So I'm going to share my screen, and you'll get a chance to see what I'm talking about here. So let's make this big. All right. So, guys, this is a product development cycle that I've shared with my students before in previous classes. So this has kind of lived for some time. But in general, what would happen, what I wanted to do with my students was I wanted to create this experience that made them feel like they were working in the office that I just come from in New York City. We would go through various steps and stages throughout the entire process with the design team, with buyers, and then there would also be concurrent processes that were happening all the time. And all of these things were really built off of what was happening in the sales space. What happened in terms of inventory and availability, and, what materials do we have that we hadn't finished using the season before. So all of these things went into, now that we know what our resources are available to us, what concepts should we develop to be able to utilize these resources? So, so there's so much more to unpack about that, but I'm just going to give you just an overview of these various things. So I'm looking at my time. It looks like we're just a couple of minutes into the hour and try to pace myself. There's a lot of content here, so I want to make it really good here. So where we would normally start, and I'll kind of describe this from, having been an American Eagle, we had an entire design team that would create an experiential space for concept only. And so they would go and they would shop the world. They would literally go to Paris and to Milan, and they would go to different areas in India. They'd be in Delhi and Bombay. They would shop the market, and then what they would do is they would bring all of those samples back to our offices in New York, and they would actually build out a space that was intended to inspire all of the creative personnel about what it is that we're creating for the upcoming season, what we're creating for the upcoming delivery. And so we would have, racks of samples of, inspired by these silhouettes or inspired by these colors. Sometimes they would make the space feel immersive. And so it would literally look like, if we were designing holiday, they'd literally make it feel like a winter wonderland. And so you're walking in and there's snow on the ground, snow. And, there would be, maybe like printed wallpaper of the Swiss Alps. And I mean, just really, they would transport you to another place or concept. And so we'd walk in and we'd sit down and we'd have our, notebooks and sketch pads, and they would just say, here's what's coming up next. Here are the trends. Here's what's happening. And then here are the resources that we have available to us right now. So then after concept was done, we would actually go away and we'd start to design. We'd sketch, we'd, pull, our own inspiration images based on the concept. We would design into specific product needs for the company. So it's not just designing for designing's sake. We would actually design specifically for, a product area. So to give you an idea of how specific that can be, I used to work on woven casual bottoms, not denim. So that's twill pants, compact stretch twill, that's, rayon. And then it got even more specific. They said, okay, well, we don't want you to do anything that has a closure. We only want you to focus on pull-on soft pants. And so now it's a very specific niche thing, but now you need to come up with 100 ideas within this very narrow window. And we'd do it. Like, we'd have to do it every single time. So designing would be, around this very specific concept for a very specific reason, with a very specific cost intention, looking at my little one. So so the design here, is happening. And, at the moment of design, we're also initiating a very concurrent process that has to take place. And that's really our sourcing and our costing. So I don't just get concept and I don't just get design, but I get someone telling me, I need you to design the specific product the way that I described it to you before. I need you to describe this very specific soft pull-on pant that will retail for $49.99. Okay. So what's available to me to design that's going to retail for $49.99? That's a soft pull-on pant. What are the materials I need? What are the finishes I can do? What do I need to purchase, or what does my production team need to purchase in order for this to take place? Our product development and production were done by the same team. So, what are those goods that are going to allow me to achieve that price point, and for the company to get the profit margin that they want? So with those ideas, that's what I go into design with. I don't design just everything that my heart desires. I design very specifically about what's needed in order to bring the product to market correctly. So then we do something called a sketch review meeting. And my students would love this because this is where they felt like they were being like real designers. And, every single season, every single delivery, we would have to do these sketch review meetings and defend our work. So if the design director says, nope, that's out of here, because it doesn't meet these criteria, or it doesn't fit into the brand, or it doesn't fit into the whole story, that sketch review meeting was a very critical editing time for you to really take a good hard look at everything that you've made. So then after we would do the sketch review meeting, we would go into something called the tech pass. Now, every company may call this something a little bit different. Fashion design and technical design have typically, I won't say typically, it depends on the size of the company. If you have a company who's large enough to have its own technical design department, then the likelihood is that you also have a separate fashion design department that works very closely with that technical design department. If you're a smaller company, however, you probably don't have the luxury to have two, and you may only have one point person on technical design, or all the fashion designers have to double as technical designers, which is highly likely, especially for emerging talent. You gotta wear all the hats. You really gotta wear all the hats. So that means that it's time for a pre-production tech pack, which is really what our product development tech pack is, to create the garment for the very first sample. And we call that the first prototype or first proto. And so once we get to our first proto, this is something where we are really keen on making sure that the design aesthetic got translated into our garment. Does the material hang the way that we hoped it would? Do the style lines look as beautiful as we thought they would? Are all the seams placed correctly? I won't get into a lot of detail about that because that's a very specific conversation. However, the first proto sample is really where we get a chance to see how our initial delivery of that content got communicated to the factory. And it's an opportunity to get a chance to tweak. So in our world, what we would do is we take all of those first protos, so the first stab at the first pass at creating the sample. That proto review meeting is where we would actually hang up all of the samples that came back from the factory from that first pre-production tech pack, from that product development tech pack. And they get reviewed very critically for salability, for brand fit, for delivery fit, for costing, costing. I always tell my students, nothing will take you out faster than a product that doesn't make cost. Everyone in the room can love it. Everyone in the room will want to buy it. Everyone will want to have it in their closets, and it will sit on the rack and it will die. It will die a collection death because it does not make the profit margin, or it has no profit margin, or you're actually paying people to take it because it's too expensive to make. So good designers know how to take this phase and make sure that they have created a viable product that will sell at the price point that's desired with the right materials that people actually want to purchase. There's a lot of ifs and ifs and ifs, but a great designer knows exactly what's needed to do that. And if you do it well, you can sell millions of dollars for brands globally. That's a real thing that happens with designers. So that doesn't mean that you get all of that if you're working for another brand, but you don't get much of that at all. But you do get a great salary for working in our business, a really great livable salary for working in our business, and and sometimes better than livable. So if you do this really well and you're able to make companies good return on the development and then on the production, you really become a valuable asset in our industry. So this is something that we teach because whether you do it for someone else or you do it for yourself, this is something that everyone will need to know on some level about how does this work, what's happening at these various stages. So product development actually isn't done yet. We're not done developing it until we're ready to go into production. So the development after the proto review meeting, the first prototype meeting, we really are getting a chance to, just doing a quick check, after the first proto review meeting, that's really something for now. After getting all the comments, we know which styles dropped, which means that which styles fell out of the collection immediately because of cost or brand aesthetic, or material just didn't look right, or they just didn't like it. Sometimes you just don't like it. You're like, I look great on paper. It does not translate in a garment. It's not really worth saving. So we're just going to drop it. And so that happens a lot during the proto review meeting. But what should come out of it is a percentage of those styles that are actually viable. So let me stop here for 2 seconds because we have an incredible partner in Gerber Technology, because one of the things that you don't get a chance to do as a designer is to see your garment in 3D before you see it in real life. So what we are really excited about with our partnership with Gerber Technology is that we're getting a chance to teach people how to take this process and actually be able to work in 2D and 3D before you actually get your sample back. So imagine you actually get a chance to see the fully rendered sample and see your first proto in the computer and decide if you like it on the avatar first before you take the time to, spend the labor, the money, the shipping cost. We really are all about trying to find ways to be much more sustainable in fashion, because if you remember what I just said, there's a bunch of styles that didn't even make the cut. We haven't even gotten past the first proto review meeting, and you could easily cut 40 and sometimes 50% of the styles before they even get past this first meeting. And they've already been made. There's already been materials selected behind them. There's a lot of waste. That's where a lot of our waste comes in, is in the sampling. And so one of the things that I'm particularly excited about is being able to encourage people to work digitally. So working in 2D, working in 3D. Gerber has this on lock. They've been doing this for a long time now. And we have an opportunity to teach it here at the Incubator. So we want to be able to help people to understand how to use these things for their resources. You can use them for line sheets. You can use them for sharing and selling with businesses and vendors. There's a lot of things that you can do that will help you be able to, cut down on, your I don't like to use the word carbon footprint because that was developed in a different way, but I think just, becoming more sustainable. We really want to see brands evaluate how wasteful their process has been and look for ways to cut out, the waste. So this is really a key moment that instead of asking for the first proto, you may actually be able to do a lot of this in 3D. So if you're curious about that, send us a note. You can send us an email at fashion.incubator@austincc.edu. We would be happy to answer any of your questions about getting that information to you and setting you up on learning how to use 3D. So let me get back to this because we are running low on time. We've got so much to talk about. So this proto review meeting. So say the proto review meeting's all wrapped up, okay? And we've got the first proto evaluation. We are rejecting the sample, perhaps, meaning we love the sample. It meets cost, it's brand right, the fabric looks fine. However, there are some small tweaks that will help us to improve our cost. So what things are that, Nina? Maybe by taking off an inch from the length of a shirt or a dress, or maybe 2 or 3 inches, if it's like a midi length or something like this, it makes it easier for more people to wear it. And I use less fabric, which means that my cost for the garment goes down. And I've made it possible for more people to wear it, which means that my profit potential has gone up. That's a lot. So in that one decision, I've actually dealt with a couple of things. I made that one style more available to more people to purchase, but I've also reduced my costs for each product made. So what does that mean? So I am actually going to say, yes, we want to take this proto sample and we want to put it into the collection, but no, we don't want this proto sample exactly as it looks today. So we reject the sample and we send the sample back with comments, and we send that sample back and we say, hey, we need to get a remake sample. Not so in 3D. If everything looks pretty good and I can see that everything's been rendered correctly, or that there's like minimal comments on the actual creation of the garment, that all of my measurements are pretty much within tolerance, I don't really have to do too much, in that regard. But in 3D, if I can actually check to see if that length works proportionately on the avatar before getting back in, our pre-production sample or the fit sample. So that way I can cut down again on another sample that I need to see before going into fits. So at some point, what's going to happen is you're going to, hi, pumpkin. At some point, you are actually going to approve the sample. We're going to move forward, not really to production yet. What we're going to say is we're going to approve the sample for design. The design is what we want, and we're happy with how the design turned out. So then this approved sample, I'm down here. If you guys are kind of like wondering, where on the page is she? She's down here. Approved sample for design. So we love the design. The design looks great. The proportions are more or less what we want, but we need to go through fittings. We need to make sure that it actually feels good on a person, and not just an avatar. So the avatar can tell me, if there's general, garment issues, some tightness in the armhole or some tightness across the chest or the hips, I can probably make some changes there. But what it won't tell me is if there's a seam that's aggravating the wearer. So got a good story on that. I'm actually thought I was wearing those pants today. I was going to show them to you, but there's a pair of pants I designed for American Eagle, and people loved them. Like, they did great. They had like 4.5 stars. Had a really good placement in the store. But once people they were like, I can't wait to wear this pant. But do you know what? Whenever people, and it wasn't everyone, but we got a few comments. So whenever you get comments, that means that there's probably more people behind that one comment than the person who actually started to actually take the time to post something. So they said, I love these pants except for the seam across the knee. Okay. And so they said that seam was really uncomfortable. It kept rubbing them. Like, whenever we did the fitting, the fit model was standing. But when you sat down, that seam across the knee actually started to rub in an uncomfortable way. And so this is something that now is like, okay, anytime we have those details, we've got to have the fit model sit down, right? She's supposed to kind of bend and move around, but for the most part, the fit model is standing during a fit session. And so you may not get some of those comments. So the first fit may be correcting, some sewing placements or some seam widths or things like that. May be correcting a little bit of, fullness, a little too much fabric or a little too little fabric on the sample in places you may not want it. But the fitting, you'll go through a first fit. If it doesn't come back right, you'll do a second fit. And one thing that I'm actually missing here, that I want to tell you guys is, after our first and second fit, we would actually do something before we got to the pre-production or the contract sample. We would do something called size set. And I'm just telling you, size set changed my life. Like, size set was the best thing that I'd ever seen. And it was really where we got a chance to see all of the samples, all of the sizes side by side, so that we would know what our contract was at different size ranges. And so it wasn't just that we would have a contract sample. We actually had, it was like together they were the contract sample for size set. And we would actually test them to make sure that all the goods came back looking the same on everybody. So I always thought it was like the most revolutionary thing that I'd seen American Eagle do. Then I realized everyone did it to some degree. Well, a lot of people do it, but it was the first time I'd seen it. And one of the things that I really appreciated about it was that it was so inclusive. It wanted to make sure that everyone who purchased this pant looked the same, that it wasn't like, oh, you got the small size, oh, you got it, the big size, or oh, you got the tall size, oh, you got the petite size, and something was wrong with it, and you could tell that something was wrong because they were not the ideal size. This made sure that everyone was ideal. And I just thought that that was the most democratic, not politically democratic, but of the people, for the people kindness that includes everyone in the experience of enjoying fashion. And so one of the things that I found challenging as, an emerging designer was being able to afford to do size set, as wanting to do it, but not always having the resources to do a proper size set, to have real fit models at a size 2, a size 6, a size, or sometimes they'll do like four, they'll start with 8 and they'll go down to a 4 and a 0, then they'll go up to a 12 and then a 16. That's typically how you see it. They'll do kind of skip sizes and go up above and below the middle size, which has been a size 8. I believe now the middle size is closer to a 10 or a 12. So it just depends on where your middle is. But for wherever your middle happens to be, those samples, cost, to create something like that, or it gets rolled into your production cost. And so depending on how many units you're making, you may or may not be able to afford to do that. So these are other things that we'll talk about, but we want to make sure you understand what are the general components of what's happening during the product development cycle. And guys, once we get to a sample that we're like, we love this, this is exactly what we were hoping for, this is exactly what we needed, now we can say, okay, let's produce this thing. So product development, ends in some ways with the actual sample that we're saying, this is what we're moving forward with. It has all the right trim, it has all the right fit, it has all the right materials. This is what we can stand behind, and we're expecting to see, 100 of these, 1,000 of these, 5,000 of these, 50,000 of these. It scared me the first time I had my first 100,000 piece order at American Eagle, and I was like, wait, how many of these are coming out? We did we call it the Applebee's pant. It's a khaki. It's a khaki, guys. And literally that khaki pant went for people who worked at Best Buy. That khaki pant went for people who went to boarding school. That khaki pant went to like Applebee's, work. I mean, everybody, we called it the Applebee's pant. So it literally was like the khaki that paid the bills. But you could easily make 100,000. So imagine not getting these pieces right. You could make a really expensive mistake along the ways, but you could also make an incredible asset for yourself, for your company, for business, if you do this really well. So over the next few weeks, we are going to unpack what this product development cycle is all about. We will get a chance to share with you a bit more about proto samples next week, and really understanding what all of those samples are and do and how they're reviewed. And you'll get a chance to get a bit more detail on that in the future. So we are so glad that we got a chance to talk to you. Seriously, I could tell you so much more. I'd love to tell you more. Product development is like one of my favorite things. So I was really glad that people wanted to hear about it. But again, I've taught this at the, collegiate level, at 2 different levels, intro and advanced course, as well as kind of an independent study. And the students always really enjoy this exercise. So anyways, I hope you enjoyed it today. We are going to close out here for Workshop Wednesday. It's been a great day, and we are hoping you're having a much better 2020. I know this has been the year of years. Breathe out. I have a feeling there's more to come, but buckle up. You can do this. And we believe in you. So guys, thanks so much for joining us. Again, my name is Nina Means. I'm the director for Austin Community College Fashion Incubator. I'm actually going to close out this sharing because it's been looking at me on this side window here. Let's see. Let's turn off sharing. So guys, again, thank you again for joining us. We're really happy that you're able to be here with us for Workshop Wednesday. If you haven't already subscribed to our channel, YouTube Live, it's, just hit that bell for the subscription, for the notifications so that we can tell you, when we're going up. Also, if you haven't taken a chance to follow us on our LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, we're at ACC Fashion Incubator. And if you have any questions, we've got a lot of really exciting things coming up here soon that we'll be announcing for classes and other opportunities that are kind of in the hopper. So fashion.incubator@austincc.edu is where you want to be. So give us a shout out. We'd love to catch up with you. We talk to businesses all the time, so we're happy to do it. Again, we'll look forward to seeing you guys soon. And this has been Workshop Wednesday.